What happens when the way you look becomes the only thing people see and the only reason they shut the door on you? The downtown restaurant gleamed with polished glass and brass. Marcus, wearing his faded leather jacket and work boots, stepped inside, hoping for dinner after a long shift. He paused, inhaling the warm scent of roasted garlic and butter. But the hostess's smile faltered the moment she saw him. Her eyes darted from his boots to his jacket, judgment written across her face. Marcus asked for a table for one. The hostess hesitated, glancing toward the manager. She whispered something, then returned, her tone cool. "We're fully booked." Behind him, a well-dressed couple entered. Without hesitation, they were led to a table. Marcus's chest tightened. He knew what had just happened. He wasn't refused because of space, but because of how he looked. He left quietly, but anger burned inside. On the street, his reflection in a store window stared back, stubble, tired eyes, and worn clothes. To strangers, he was just a man who didn't belong. Still, Marcus worked hard every day in construction, earning honest pay. But the world rarely asked about the man, only the appearance that stood before them. Word of the incident traveled. A co-worker, Derek, had seen Marcus leave the restaurant that night, turned away at the door. He told others at the site, and soon whispers spread. Marcus had been rejected because he looked rough. Some shook their heads in sympathy. Others shrugged, muttering, "Places have standards." The injustice stung deeper than the rejection itself. Marcus decided to return the next night, cleaner and sharper. He shaved, pressed a shirt, and borrowed a friend's blazer. Again, he asked for a table. This time, the hostess smiled warmly, leading him inside without hesitation. Rage simmered beneath his polite nod, proof that the only barrier yesterday had been appearance. Every bite of the meal tasted like quiet defiance. As he finished, the manager passed by. Their eyes met, and Marcus's jaw tightened. He wanted to call it out, to ask why one jacket meant entry and another meant rejection. His chest rose with unspoken words. And then, the knock at the door froze every breath. The knock belonged to Derek, who had followed Marcus. He stepped inside, catching the tail end of the scene. Derek confronted the hostess loudly, demanding to know why Marcus was treated differently the night before. Diners glanced up from their plates. The manager stiffened, irritation flashing across his face. But the silence from nearby tables spoke volumes. The manager tried to brush it off. "It must have been a misunderstanding," he said smoothly. Marcus stood, refusing to stay silent. "It wasn't. Yesterday, I wore different clothes. That was the only difference." His words echoed through the quiet room. Whispers stirred, other diners were listening closely now. What was meant to stay hidden was now exposed. A woman at a nearby table spoke up. She had been there the previous night. "I saw him turn away. They seated us immediately after." The room shifted. The accusation no longer rested on Marcus's shoulders, it now pressed against the manager. Marcus's heart pounded. For the first time, the truth wasn't just his word. It was witnessed. The manager's voice sharpened. "Sir, we reserve the right to refuse service." His tone was icy, defensive. But Derek stepped closer, challenging him. Refusing service is one thing. Refusing dignity is another. The crowd stirred again, murmurs louder now. Marcus's pulse raced. The injustice that once felt private now stood on public display. The manager's mask began to slip. Trying to regain control, the manager gestured toward the door. "If this establishment offends you, perhaps you should leave." His words cut like glass, but Marcus stayed rooted. Every muscle screamed to walk out, yet something deeper anchored him. This was no longer about dinner, it was about principle. And leaving quietly meant letting the lie remain intact. Then came a sharp voice from the back. A man in a tailored suit stood, revealing himself as an attorney. Refusal based on attire alone, when no dress code is posted, borders on discrimination. And I'll testify to it. The air crackled with tension. The rule he cast on Marcus was now aimed squarely at him. The attorney stepped forward, recounting what he'd observed. His words carried authority, stripping the manager's excuses bare. Marcus felt the tide turn. His humiliation was no longer invisible. Diners leaned in, their curiosity fusing with indignation. The hostess shifted uneasily, eyes lowered. Marcus, once voiceless, now found allies. The balance of power had shifted. The truth was gaining ground. Another diner spoke up, a local journalist. She scribbled notes, her pen racing across the page. "Stories like this matter," she said. The manager's face paled. This wasn't a private dispute anymore. It was becoming public record. Marcus's chest swelled, not with pride, but with long-suppressed relief. The walls of dismissal that once closed around him were cracking apart. Sweat beaded the manager's forehead. His voice trembled as he insisted it was all policy. Yet the diners murmured, eyes sharp. Marcus's silence now spoke louder than words. He had endured enough. Derek placed a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. The manager's authority, once unquestioned, now crumbled under the weight of witnesses. Truth was no longer optional. Tension collided head-on. Marcus finally spoke, his voice strong. "You judged me before I even opened my mouth. Not for who I am, but for what I wear." Gasps rippled across the dining room. The words, once bottled, poured out. The manager flinched under the truth, unable to contain it. The very room he controlled was now his trial. The journalist's camera clicked, capturing faces, reactions, the raw clash of dignity versus bias. The attorney stood beside Marcus, unshaken. Every detail weighed heavier now. Marcus felt a surge, years of quiet slights and looks finally condensed into this moment. The line had been crossed, and the truth pressed forward with unrelenting force. The reckoning was inevitable. Then came the sharpest crack. A diner pulled out their phone, showing a video recorded the previous night. It captured Marcus being refused, followed by others being seated. The manager's mouth opened, but no words followed. Proof undeniable. But hidden in plain sight was the truth no one wanted to see. The video spread through the room like fire. Diners gasped, eyes wide at the undeniable evidence. The manager's hand shook. He tried to speak, but his excuses dissolved under the weight of the recording. Marcus stood taller now, not just a man wronged, but a man vindicated. The confrontation had reached its peak. There was no escaping the truth. The journalist seized the moment. "This will run tomorrow," she said. The attorney added, "And I'll file a complaint tonight." The diners applauded softly, an organic, rising tide of support. Marcus blinked against the sudden weight lifting from his shoulders. The shame that had clung to him hours earlier now turned outward, wrapping itself around the guilty instead. The manager's voice broke, barely audible. "Please, let's discuss this privately." But the room was already watching, waiting. Marcus spoke with steady calm. "No. We'll discuss it here. In the same room where you tried to strip me of dignity." Silence stretched. And in that instant, the room fell silent, every eye turning to the truth. The manager sagged, defeated. "I was wrong," he admitted, words heavy, reluctant. Marcus stared at him, searching for sincerity, finding only exhaustion. Still, the admission mattered. Justice wasn't always a courtroom, it was also a room full of witnesses demanding honesty. The manager's control was gone. Marcus had reclaimed not just a seat at the table, but his dignity. Afterward, diners approached Marcus. Some shook his hand, others thanked him for standing firm. Derek grinned, pride shining in his eyes. The journalist promised to follow through, and the attorney assured action would be taken. Marcus walked outside into the night air, lighter than before. The city lights shimmered, not as barriers of judgment, but as beacons of possibility. Weeks later, the restaurant faced public scrutiny. Policies changed, apologies issued, and the manager resigned. Marcus, once humiliated, became the symbol of a lesson larger than himself. The lesson was clear: dignity denied because of appearances and justice waiting to be exposed. And truth always finds its voice. If stories like this speak to you, subscribe now. Because here, we uncover truth, deliver justice, and share lessons worth remembering.